What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. The Black Armory is back in action with the Blast Furnace Pulse Rifle in the Kinetic slot, coming back to us. Absolute menace of a Pulse Rifle inside of that nice, aggressive, hard-hitting 4-burst fire. So this thing absolutely adapts people up inside of the Crucible, and a very viable pulse rifle inside of the PvE realm. So we are going to go over all these god rolls for you guys inside of both of those realms, as well as this amazing origin trait right here that definitely supports the PvE side of thing more than the PvP. But Indomitability, Final Blows grant grenade energy when playing on our Arc, Solar, or Void subclasses, or melee energy when playing on our Darkness, so our Strand, as well as our Stasis. So this has the potential to give us some amazing ability spam inside of that PvE realm, plus even inside of the Crucible, giving us a little bit of this stacking up, especially if you were just going on an absolute rampage. You can get some of that grenade back very quickly on something like a Trip Mine Hunter. Now, when we move on to the PvP side of the god rolls, I'm going with Counterbalance stock as our mod that I would throw on, giving us that plus 15 in recoil. Since it's an aggressive frame, had a pretty wild recoil pattern at 65, so throwing this on, giving us that 80, allows it to pull pretty straight up and down, a little bit to the left when you are firing it, but way better than it is with just the 65 without this counterbalance. Next off, I went with the Masterwork of Stability, if you can get that on, because it is almost at as high as we can get with 96 range without any of the Masterwork on it, with just the perks that we have on the weapon. So a Masterwork of Stability turns this thing into a laser beam. Way less bounce in my opinion when you have this on. For barrel options, this is my personal favorite right here, with small bore at 7 stability, 7 range, has us at 96 in that range with 81 in stability. Could go with hammer forged rifling, only gives us plus 3 to range, compared to what this does is plus 10 total range without that stability. So it definitely has more of a bounce, and at 99 it's not really a difference between 96 and 99 range, so I like small bore a little bit better. Another option besides small bore, this would be my second option, is Corkscrew. Gives us plus 5 to stability, range, handling. We are at 94 in range, 79 in stability, and 29 in handling. So this does feel pretty nice in my personal opinion, like a jack of all trades, rounding it all out. Plus that little difference, we only get 2 more in range and 2 more in stability when we throw on small bore, so it does feel a little bit better because that stability gets pushed into the 80s, but it's not too crazy. Into the second option, Accurized is definitely our best option with plus 10 to range, gives us that juicy range that I was talking about at 96. Second option is Steady Rounds. You do lose 5 to range, so we are all the way down to 81 on range, but our stability is stacked up all the way to 96. So if you are having trouble shooting this weapon, go with Steady Rounds, but you are losing a good chunk of range when you take off those Accurized. Moving on to our third column, got quite a bit of different options for you, which I personally think that this Zen Moment is my favorite because of the reduced recoil and flinch over time with this. It feels very good on that 4-round burst that we have, especially when we have Accurized small bore on. This definitely gets that flinch and recoil feeling way better than it does, even though we still have about 80 stability when we have this built out with our other perks, but this thing makes it feel like it doesn't bounce at all. Second option is Keep Away. We get increased reload, range, accuracy when we aren't in close proximity, so we get that 10 to range, 30 to reload, and a little decrease in that accuracy cone by about 5%. So it does make it more accurate, but we really don't need the range on this because it's already at 96, so that plus 10 to range that usually helps out some of these pulse rifles is not needed, so that's why I liked Zen a little bit more than Keep Away. Third option is Perpetual. This weapon gains that stability, handling, reload while you are in motion, stacks up to ×2 after 10 seconds, so each stack provides 10 stability, 10 handling, 10 reload, so having that plus 20 in stability and handling with Perpetual does feel very nice. It gives us basically 100 in our stability when we have Perpetual ×2 stacked, so it is a very, very good option, but I do personally like Zen Moment a little bit better than Perpetual, so I would go with Zen Moment and then Perpetual as my options. Final choice right here, which I would throw at third overall, right in front of Keep Away, would be Head Seeker. After dealing non-precision weapon damage, we get that weapon damage increase to precision shots, so it is a nice little bit of shooting, especially with a pulse, because not every single bullet is going to hit in the head, so we kind of get this to stack on a couple different bullets when we are shooting it out into the Guardians, so it is a very viable option, very good option for pulse rifles, but I like that Zen Moment because of the bounce on this thing, and Perpetual giving us that 100 stability. So like I said, I would go with Zen Moment, followed by Perpetual, followed by Head Seeker right here, and then finally that Keep Away. First option would go with Kill Clip right here. Reloading after kills grants us that bonus damage increase, and it's a 25% increase, so as an aggressive frame, this thing absolutely beams people, especially when we have that Zen Moment on as our third column perk. Second option for me is Frenzy. When we're in combat for an extended period of time, we get damage, handling, and reload until we come out of combat, so it's a nice 15% damage increase, and we get 100 to handling, so inside of the Crucible does feel nice when you're using that handling to switch on and off of weapons when you are using this pulse, but I do like Kill Clip just a little bit more. And finally, your final option is Rapid Hit. Rapid precision hits gives us that increase to stability and reload, so this won't do as much damage as Frenzy or our Kill Clip, but with that extra stability that you can get on this, it does stack up to 100 very, very easily, especially if you are using some of the other barrels and perks. Hammer Forge, you'll use that 7 of the stability from small bore, so Rapid Hit might come in handy, but it would be my last option of the 3 right here inside of the third column. But overall, this thing definitely slaps very, very hard. We give it a 4.75 for sure inside of the Crucible out of 5. Moving on to PvE, where it is still a very good weapon, especially for our kinetic slot, having this thing as a legendary high aggressive frame. It feels very, very good, kind of like the Smite of Moraine without having to go into a raid or Pantheon. So we're going to go with a boss spec as our weapon. Mod gives us that 8% increase to those bosses, mini bosses, and vehicles. Shriekers count as vehicles, just so everybody knows, so this does count towards them, but it is a very good PvE perk to have on. Now, Masterwork, 2 options. I personally like range for my gameplay inside of the PvE realm. If you are having trouble keeping up with the bounce of this weapon, go with stability, but it does have pretty good reload on this for being a high burst in that 4-round aggressive, so I like the range, stacking us out into the high 90s with this as our Masterwork. Barrel column, I really think this is your only option you could go with, so you can have that nice stability as well as range for our traits. Not loving the other options because we don't need handling, and throwing on Hammer Forge only gives us +3 to range compared to small bore, and we lose that step in stability, so definitely go with small bore as your barrel. Second column right here, 2 options. Tactical Mag is your first one. We got 5 to stability, 10 reload, and 4 to magazine. So that 10 reload feels very good inside of PvE, as well as that extra burst that we get from the magazine. Definitely my number 1 option for our magazine. My number 2 option is Appended Mag. We get an extra burst, so we get 2 extra bursts, I should say, inside of this compared to nothing. But Tactical Mag gives us +4 in the magazine. This gives us +8, so not really too crazy of an addition besides just that 1 pulse. So that's why I like the reload that we get on our Tactical Mag. PvE Kinetic Tremors. I personally like this, especially after they gave it its buff where it works a little bit quicker for those hits. Instead of before you had to shoot a good amount of the magazine into an enemy, now for this pulse rifles we only have to hit 11, so that's only a couple bursts with this weapon on an enemy since it is a 4-round burst. So I really like Kinetic Tremors on this. Does a good amount of shockwave damage to those nearby enemies. Feels very good in my opinion, especially in something like Onslaught, or when we have a lot of enemies coming at us with some of those bigger enemies to shoot at as well. Does very good with damaging everything in the area. My other option right here is shoot to loot. I don't use this as much as I should, but shooting the orbs of power or ammo bricks picks them up and automatically reloads those weapons from reserves, so it is very helpful in some of that end game content. GM's super hard master parts of the raids where you gotta kind of chill and be very safe about getting one hit by stuff. You can shoot those ammo bricks, shoot those orbs of power to get your super back, so it is a very good option, but very situational. So I personally like Kinetic over shoot to loot, but they are totally up to you, whichever you want, personal opinion wise. Fourth column, 3 different options. First, I like Firefly, my number 1 option I think in this category, especially when you pair it with Kinetic Tremors. We have those precision final blows, give us increase to reload and cause an explosion, dealing solar damage to nearby allies. So this is very good for dealing that sustained add clear damage to enemies when you get those precision hits. And when you pair it with Kinetic Tremors, you do a little bit of both. You can get those precision kills on the smaller enemies, spread that fire damage, then do kinetic, and it'll spread that nice shockwave damage. So we love Firefly. Second option, which I also really like, can really go either way, flip of a coin for me between Firefly and this, is One for Fall. When we hit 3 separate targets, we're getting that nice 35% increase to damage for 10 seconds. So pairing this again with something like Kinetic Tremors with One for All does feel very nice, especially if we hit those small targets first, then hit that big guy for 10 seconds. We're going to get Kinetic Tremors and this to proc, so it is a nice damage increase for the weapon. Last but certainly not least, we got Desperate Measures, probably my third option for this category behind One for All and Firefly, but we do get that damage increase based on final blows, with melees and grenade final blows stacking that damage up higher, up to a 30% increase in damage, which kills can refresh the timer, so it is a good damage burst as well. But I like One for All better because you don't got to get those defeats, you just got to hit 3 separate targets. So I personally would throw this as the last option compared to the other 2, which are coin tosses, but this thing feels very good inside of the PvP and PvE realm. Like I said, I gave it a 4.7 out of 5 for the PvP side of things, and I think I'm going to give it the same exact score, maybe a 4.5 out of 5 for the PvE side of thing, just because I really love Kinetic Tremors with this, and Firefly is a very good option. Like I said, way more accessible for the masses compared to something like Smite Armor Rain, which also has some very good rolls on it. But definitely get to grinding this bad boy out inside of those Onslaughts. Very fun weapons that we got back in the rotation. Black Armory is back. Hopefully we get a bunch of new weapons in here since they unsunset everything, and with some of us that have been grinding out this game since the beginning and not a lot of vault space, ended up giving up our sunset since they said they were never ever coming back, and then they said just kidding. So we will see how that goes. But again, I appreciate all you guys coming back to the channel. Means a lot to me, helps the channel out a bunch when you guys like and subscribe to the channel, as well as slap that bell button so you don't miss out on any of this content here. Means a bunch to me, and again, I appreciate all you guys for always coming back. I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.